Yeah, I mean, the first one was kind of just the breakthrough of knowing I can do it. And then this one was a lot of redemption. You know, last year was so tough, a terrible year. I left this place in shambles, and it's amazing what a year can do. And so I'm leaving here this Sunday as a champion, and I'm just so blessed. So thank you, guys.
Yeah! And it's wire to wire for Wyndham. Let's go! And a second U.S. Open championship.
Yes, indeed. A very big hello and welcome to the Course Language Podcast. All thanks to our very good friends at Callaway, a special US Open review episode. And we might not be bright-eyed, but we are bushy-tailed and probably bleary-eyed after staying up late, getting up early, however you put it in, to watch what was an incredible 126 US Open, the third major of the year. Won for the second time since he won his first in 2023 by, as you heard it from the greatest to ever call golf, wire to wire Wyndham Clark, who wins it again. What a week it was. No one I'd prefer to speak to it all about than the man who played on the Australian Tour. He won on the Australian Tour. He teaches others to hopefully do the same. He commentates on our tour. He's played all around the world, and he was up like I was, getting no sleep, but captivated by this US Open. Lynchy, hello, mate.
Hello, Sammy. Captivated is the right word. It was enthralling from start to finish. I know, obviously, Wyndham took advantage, and we'll get into this, took advantage of some good conditions in the opening round. What an incredible round he put together to get himself off to that start. And then we'll talk about the other round, I think, that obviously won him the tournament, which was the third round, how he just held it together and just made all those US Open pars that was required. And what a golf course. I mean, great golf courses allow players to separate, and I think that was kind of what we saw this week. Just fascinating to watch guys hit different shots and have to flight the ball differently into greens. I thought the most enjoyable aspect of it was not only when they hit the fairway, which at times was difficult with some of the wind that was around this week, but you started to lean into the TV once they'd hit the fairway because you were excited about watching their approach shots, which we don't get to see, or you don't have that same level of anticipation for second shots, say, as into the 10th hole this week, which we watched all week. But absolutely loved it, Sammy. It was incredible, mate. What did you think?
It was, you know, we were so hopeful of what this course was going to be and what it was going to give or not give to the players. And I think in parts of the week, we got to see that. Shinnecock at its brutal best, as it has been whenever it's held these US Opens before. There were some incredible storylines to come through it, and I'm really looking forward to touching on a few of those. Some are more lighthearted than others, some a bit more of a serious nature. But, you know, as we heard, wire to wire for Wyndham Clark, he battled the course, the crowd, the conditions, and the cohort that was trying to chase him down. He held on to a 6-shot, 54-hole lead, the only person that's ever let go of a 6-shot lead going into the final day of a major, as we know. It was Greg in 1996, but he wins his second US Open by 1 shot over Sam Burns, who was heartbreak for him last year when he let go of a lead that he held into the back nine on the final day at Oakmont. He's now a 2-time major winner. Both of them are US Opens for Wyndham Clark. How did he do it, Lynchy?
Well, I think we sort of mentioned a little bit off the top, but in US Opens, it's a war of attrition, right? You've got to be mentally switched on. You've got to be there for every single shot. He played so well and did get fortunate, played the best conditions in round one. Given that there was a fog delay in round one, so things got flipped around a little bit. They were expected, or that wave was expected to have the most difficult conditions of the entire week, which was why the USGA set up the greens the way that they did. They were a little softer than I would have liked to have seen. And then there was some fog delay, so the second half of the field ended up playing in a little less wind. But Wyndham Clark went out there and just wielded that putter so well. And it's easy to forget how well he putted when he won at LACC a couple of years ago as well. I mean, this guy, to have won 2 US Opens now, is a pretty spectacular resume. I mean, hasn't performed well in majors at all other than these 2 wins, which really says something as well. I mean, him and Greg Norman, who you mentioned off the top, they have now got the same amount of major victories, which is pretty stark, isn't it?
I mean, just let that sink in. Let that sink in for people. at the moment.
Exactly. And we'll get a little bit more into this as well. But the fact that he was battling the crowd, I've had a gutful. That New York crowd, that's just not on. I mean, it's a bit of a laugh, or you can have a bit of a chuckle. But then when it gets that personal and it gets that in your face, it's not on. So you're exactly right. He's not only fighting the golf course, he's not only fighting his own mental battles, but he's also fighting the crowd as well. So that third round, we will talk about for a long, long time. The amount of par saves that he was able to make from that 6, 7, 8, 9 foot range, how good your short game has to be to not only win, but compete at the US Opens. You're just not going to hit a lot of greens. And those POA greens, especially late in the day, and you said wire to wire, so he's played in the last group on the Saturday and Sunday. So those POA greens, when they're running quickly like that and they're really slopey, they get quite bouncy. And we saw throughout the coverage how difficult it was to make those short range putts where you're hitting them in with soft speed, needing the break to take it in the right spot, and he was able to do it better than most. So got to tip your hat to Wyndham. And also I think that the Sunday actually ended up being a lot more interesting than what we thought it might have been at the start of the day, right?
Well, it was, and especially when he bogeyed three of the first 7 holes, and then comes back to the pack in really quick time, and there were people making a run at him, and it became, the longer it went on, and the more the pressure mounted, and the more the crowd continued to be against him, and the more that he kept making clutch putts at clutch times, the more my admiration for him went through the roof. And we will probably dig more into the treatment. In fact, why don't we just do it now? You've opened the door to that, but just some of the stats or some of the comments about the treatment that stood out to me. When you look at what, Brandel Chambly's not everybody's favourite person, but he said that's the worst I've seen a player treated, an American player on American soil, in his time covering golf. Paul McGinley believed that he was anticipating it. Wyndham, we know what happened at Oakmont when he beat up a locker. Obviously, he was the villain last week at the Canadian Open as well. Paul McGinley reckons that just like they anticipated it last year at Bethpage Black for the Ryder Cup, that he was anticipating it. But he's an American playing a US Open on American soil with the crowd that's supposedly the most parochial crowd. Well, they've disproven that. That they really should actually be ashamed of themselves. But even Smiley was saying every hole, every shot, he's never seen an American player treated like that. It was after every hole, people barracking for. The only other person was copying that was Rory. So just let that sink in. Rory was still copying it as he does from the New York crowd. Yeah. But at Wyndham, an American was copying the same thing. Get in the bunker, cheering when he missed a green. No one applauding when he made a putt. He likened it to Smiley likened it to how Matt Fitz was treated at the Players when he was going up against Cam Young. But again, Fitz, not an American. And he said the one thing that he was just in awe of, Wyndham never got irritated. He never let it look like it. He expected it. He knows he did the wrong thing last year. He just said, okay, well, this is what it is. And for every negative they threw at him, he said, I just wanted to try and create a positive about myself. I think it adds another element to the win. Yeah,
we have to, we've got to be careful talking about it a whole heap either, because it's that bullying mentality. The more you talk about it, the more people kind of want to do it as well, but it's just not on. Yeah. The way that Fitz was treated, the way that Rory was treated this week, the way that the Ryder Cup was handled last year, it's not on. I thought that at least the USGA had the backbone to start kicking people out really quickly. They were booting people out left, right, and centre, which I appreciated. They'd clearly learnt from the mistakes that the PGA of America didn't learn from the Ryder Cup and put a bit of a halt to it. I don't know whether or not they were turning off the crowd mics towards the second half of the back nine, but it did sound like it had slowed down at least a little bit from people getting kicked out. But
I think he was winning people over. I think he was actually starting to begrudgingly win people over. But this is how he had to win a couple of years ago as well, because everybody wanted the Ricky Fowler story that year. And this year, everybody wanted the Scottie Scheffler Father's Day, 30th birthday, get the Grand Slam story. But they weren't barracking this hard against him when he won in 2023 as they were this year.
It was obvious when Scheffler made that birdie putt on 10 and the roar that we heard compared to the almost deafening silence when Wyndham Clark rolled that putt in on top of him for birdie on 10 and incredible for both the guys in the final round to birdie that hole. That was the most enjoyable hole for me all week to watch.
Me too.
Just watching guys struggle to hit a green with a lob wedge is awesome.
Yeah.
And actually having some strategy come back into, I'm not just going to bomb it down there as far as I can. I might lay back to give myself just a little fuller wedge at times to be able to hit the green when it's downwind and perched up like that. I thought it was great. But yeah, look, I think he probably will win a little bit more of the crowd back. No doubt what he did last year to the locker room at Oakmont was borderline disgraceful, and he's had some pretty poor moments on the golf course, and we need villains like that. I think that, anytime that someone in golf can incite that level of feeling amongst crowd or patrons, or that's a good thing for the game. But we've just got to be a little bit more respectful of the fact that we're very close. Like you're not sitting in the second row or 4 rows back from the fence at an AFL game screaming at one of the players across the field. They're not going to hear you. Whereas here, you're 10 yards away from someone with no other noise. It's a bit in your face. So it's just not in the spirit of the game, and it's not what this game's about.
When you completely disrespect someone to a point of disrespecting them as a human being, I think that's when we go too far.
Yeah.
Sport is all about heroes and villains. So yes, there is that element, and I love all that because the theatre is what makes sport so great, and the storylines in and around it, and we cheer for that, we might boo for that. But when it starts to get nasty is when I think, well, you've actually gone too far with all of this. And he's a human being, and I really like Wyndham. I've said this before because he's a person who puts his hand up and says, I am fallible. He has owned the fact that wasn't his finest moment and that wasn't the person he wanted to be and that he'd done the wrong thing. He's been really open and honest with his mental health struggles all throughout his career, his anger issues that he's had, the impact that his mum dying had on him. He does the work too. He does the work knowing that I'm going to stuff up again. I have stuffed up and I will stuff up again, but every time I'm out there, I'm going to try my best to be my best. And all of last year he wasn't, and he owned that and has said that. So I think if someone's a dick, yes, but if someone's a dick and then can never understand that they're a dick, then sure, maybe they deserve a bit more. But this is a guy that says, I've been a dick, I don't want to be a dick, I'm trying really hard not to be one. So I relate to that because I believe I'm imperfect. I have my moments where I wish I could take that back, where I've said and done things, and you know what I'm like. I hang on to it forever. And I think he's a little bit the same. So I feel like I really do empathise with him in that space.
You would have thought that he might have gained a few fans from the New York crowd by wearing the USA Guernsey last week at the Canadian Open, but not to be. Anyway,
as long as this for the team,
exactly. As long as this doesn't permeate throughout the rest of golf, let's pray. I mean, pray to whatever God you believe in that it doesn't come down into our shores. Yeah, exactly. The golf gods. It doesn't come to our shores. Just respect all the players that are out there. Barrack hard for who you want to see win, but we don't need to see any of that.
I want to ask you about the course. Just before we do, was the most impressive thing? So the 2 holes that are always going to stand out for me. Yes, 10 you've mentioned, but 16 rounds 3 and 4. So the eagle. Yeah. How pivotal was that eagle when no one was really making eagle? On 16 on Saturday, he makes that eagle. Yeah, today or this morning our time, that drive goes into the fescue and everyone's sort of thinking, well, get ready for a playoff. I mean, this is just not savable, but somehow not only gets it back into play, but advances it to a level past those 5 bunkers that no one thought he could. And to make birdie after being where he was, the putt that he rolled in, he got a bit lucky, the ball didn't come off. So to me, I always think of what's the shot that'll be remembered. I think it's out of the fescue on 16. So 16 both days were pivotal. And they were saying just like it was for Floyd back when he won it. So what was the stats that mattered for you? Where did he win this tournament?
Well, I mean, going back even to the first, as you mentioned, bogeying 3 of the first 6 and letting the rest of the field in. I mean, he got to 8 under par with that eagle in the 3rd round, which you mentioned on 16. So he got to 8 under par, ends up in the clubhouse at 6 or whatever he was, and then makes... So he's 5 over for his next 10 holes, really, which is pretty incredible. And he said he didn't have his best stuff, but righted the ship. I thought that a really pivotal shot in that final round was the shot that he hit on 9 out of the fescue short right of the green where he nearly holed it. I mean, the wheels are falling off at this stage. Scheffler's close to him. Sam Burns is close to him. Tom Kim's doing things. You know, he's all of a sudden back in it. And he nearly holes that chip shot, goes on birdies 10, hits a really good shot at 11. And I think you're right. Beyond that, it was quite difficult for anyone to make any putts. Sam Burns did a great job chasing this year. Obviously, he had the lead last year and probably got a bit unlucky in terms of the way that some of the adjudications went in terms of the wet weather and all that sort of stuff. But certainly when the best players find an opening or that capitalising making birdie on 16 there was absolutely pivotal. I mean, he 3-putted the next, but that taking advantage when you're just a little bit in front of where you could have been is what the best players did, and he took advantage all week. I think that hole as well, just to your point, just to highlight your point, there are very few actual par fives in the game these days for these players, and
only
the first two
on that course.
And the first 2 days, 16 played into the wind, and you're talking about Rory McIlroy hitting it 240 yards off the tee with his swing speed. You're talking about Bryson DeChambeau hitting driver 3-wood 8-iron into that green. I mean, how good to see a par 5 actually be a par 5 for the first 2 rounds.
Absolutely.
But, that was, fascinating stuff.
The putter, the most pivotal club in the bag, really, for everybody at the end of the day. The theme and the story throughout was that he just kept making putts when he needed to throughout each of the 4 days. And yes, there was that that 3-putt that you mentioned after what he did on 16, but the lag putt on 18. And for Burns, who you've pointed out many times, is in the best handful of putters on tour, it's just a millimetre here or there that meant that he couldn't force a playoff. So it was pivotal for what Sam Burns was trying to do, and it was pivotal for what Wyndham Clark was able to do in the end.
I think Wyndham caught it a little high on the face with his approach shot into 18. I don't think he thought it was going to get to the green and ended up flying far enough to give himself a putt at it and perfection in terms of speed. When you're watching guys who are really in control of the putter, the speed control is usually really, really spot on and perfect putt up the last to give himself that tap in. But you're exactly right. I mean, Sam Burns had his chances down the stretch. He made a brilliant birdie putt on 16, that hole again, but also had the 3-putt and a pretty poor effort, it must be said, on 17. But those POA greens, as we said, get really, really tough late in the day in particular. So no surprise to see those guys miss even some short range putts. And the reason I say that is that short-range putts on those POA greens when they start to bounce are really difficult because they're not carrying very much speed. So the slower the ball is moving, the more those imperfections in the green start to bounce. And anyone who was watching the coverage today would have seen Scottie Scheffler's putt. Was that on 12 or there was a birdie putt on 12, like one of those early holes in the back 9 that was baffled that it didn't go in. It's crazy to see.
There's a couple of those for him throughout. And the course itself, we were really excited because we've seen what Shinnecock has been over the years. You know, when Brooks Koepka wins in 2018, he wins at 1 over. Only Tommy Fleetwood shooting 63 on that final day that year to come runner up defied all logic and the trends of the day. When Retief won it, only T and Phil were under par. So we've seen what this course has been in our lifetimes, Lynchy, and you really covered that so well in our preview. John Jennings retires after 45 years, the superintendent. But it was the words of John McLean, which I want to throw to you and get your thoughts whether it lived up to this. He's the director of instruction for the PGA at Shinnecock, and he said, Shinnecock is a place where every shot you hit, once it's in the air, you hold your breath and hope that it's the right distance. The biggest key to winning at Shinnecock is distance control with your irons. Your spin, your trajectory, shot shapes all have to be dialed. Being a little bit off with an approach, given the way the greens are, can send your ball ricocheting 30 yards in any direction. Did that ring true for you throughout all of the 4 days, or was it did they try to have a bit each way at times? How did you see the course?
Look, great test. I mean, it's hard at the end of the week to say anything other than the USGA got it right when only 3 players were under par. So exactly what we're after in terms of a US Open test. They had to be cautious, obviously, rounds 1 and 2, big fields, trying to get them through, syringing the greens, which is essentially watering the greens between groups to make sure that they don't dry out and they lose the course. Where some of these greens are just sit on such tilts that can happen really quickly. So I thought I was a bit disappointed to see how many balls were spinning and how quickly the ball was stopping at times in the first couple of rounds, but it was blowing a hurricane and they probably didn't even get the wind that they were expecting to get. So Wyndham took advantage, and you watch any major championship, the whole point is that you outlast the course, and at times you've got to win it from the right side of the draw. At times you've got to win it from the wrong side of the draw. So I thought the golf course was spectacular. Again, there's now a total of 6 players in the last 4 showings at this event under par. So Shinnecock for me is very, very high up on my bucket list in terms of golf courses to play in the US. I thought it was spectacular this week. And to your point there as well, and I mentioned that a little bit off the top, it's great when a player hits the fairway and they've got a wedge in, or they've got these interesting greens that repel the ball away, and if you don't quite get it right, you could be absolutely boned or in the wrong spot. It's really nice to lean into your TV when a player's hit the fairway and be more interested in the approach shot than, okay, well, he's hit in the fairway, so now he's going to wedge it somewhere on the green, and it's either going to be 30 foot or it's going to be 20 foot or it's going to be 15 foot, and we'll see if they make the putt. That's just uninteresting golf, and that is the opposite to what Shinnecock is. Very interesting.
I think between this and the PGA, we've absolutely won the argument now about what would you prefer to watch. If you want to watch soft greens where throw darts, just bomb drives and lob darts in, driver, wedge, putt, and off you go. Good luck to you. But surely you can't help but have been on the edge of your seat, just like you said. And you said choice creates doubt. And how good to see the conversations between caddy and player where they really had to work it through. The caddies are not spoken about enough in these moments, because these are the tournaments they make their money, when they know and maybe the player doesn't, and the way they process it with the player, the way the Wyndham's caddy, what he does to just give him what Wyndham was saying, gives him the mental trigger to refocus in. And that was so important, because every time he just kept saying, that's good process, because that was just a reminder to block out the crowd, block out the score on the last, just stick to this. So the caddies did a magnificent job throughout, and those conversations were worth, they were so fascinating to listen to see exactly what you spoke about, was the doubt.
Yeah, and I thought the coverage did a really good job. I believe the caddies had a mic in their pockets this week, so we could actually hear very clearly what the caddies and the players were talking about. And there were times, I remember distinctly in the 3rd round, where Wyndham Clark's in the long fescue and they're talking about where they want to leave it. Like, I'm not going to be able to hit the green. If I do hit the green, this is where I want it to be. I prefer the miss short left here. We're not going at the pin because I don't want the ball to miss long right. I'd rather be in the left bunker or the short bunker. So we're not looking at the pin at all. So when you've got those decisions and when players are talking about where they don't want to miss, they're already thinking about what kind of shot they need to hit, and then what their backup is, or what side they're going to be erring in terms of caution. And that's when golf is at its most fascinating. When there's long rough surrounding the greens, often the idea is, okay, well, I can take it a little bit more at the pin, or I can play to the fat side of the green. But if I take a little bit more on and it runs through, or I catch it a bit thin and it bounces through, it's only going to be the same as an average shot. So the difference between no grass or very short grass and very long grass is, if you hit a worse shot, the ball is going to run significantly further away. If you hit a slightly better shot, it may hang on. But that was fascinating to hear the players and the process and the way that they were talking about where they wanted to miss rather than where they actually wanted to hit it.
I love when social media and digital teams just start to think about what do people really want to know from the players when we get an opportunity to get access to them. So well done to all the content creators there. There's a couple that asked this question, but I reckon it's worth playing because you couldn't help but think while you were sitting there, I wonder how I'd go around here. And so to the people that we're going to play this audio who provided it, well done, because they got around the players and said, what would an 18 or a 15 handicap? And the one we're going to play is what an 18 handicap would shoot at Shinnecock, and starting with Xander Scheffler.
Oh man, with this wind, maybe triple digit, maybe a little 100. I mean, couple. I wouldn't say anything worse than 105. Hopefully.
Generous.
Okay, nice guy.
Not an 18 handicap. They don't break 200. Sorry to say.
God, I'm gonna get roasted either way, but let's just go 125 is the over/under.
Off the back tees, 30 to 35 over.
Scratch handicap would shoot around 95, so add another 30, 125.
I'm just thinking of my father-in-law who has a handicap 18 and he would not break 125.
I don't think he gets home. Stroke play. Depends. If he's trying to play good golf, I don't know if he can finish. It's random too, like if you're a good 18 handicapper, if you've got a good short game, if you hit the ball well, I don't know. Would I give him 200?
You know, it's not as drastic. This setup's not as drastic as normal. I think the feskew's relatively... I mean, you can get out the fescue. Like, I'm not saying you're going to hit good shots out of it, but and the fairways are relatively wide. But an 18 handicapper in that wind, I think they've got no clue on the wind, to be honest with you. 114.
Oh, gosh, 1,000. I mean, and definitely not breaking 100 out there today from back tees.
Yeah, so that was thanks to the DP World Tour's content people, and they do a brilliant job. I mean, anything interesting coming out of that content space is always the DP World Tour. They do this regularly for a US Open, and it's a difficult question, obviously, to ask because you don't want to lose any fans in this space. But
I'll tell you what, there's a couple that were... Xander didn't want to... He didn't want to insult or offend anyone. There was a couple that just go, 200. Like, good luck getting 200 here. Rosie was like, well, they just won't know the wind. I thought Rosie's answer was really interesting because it's going to be our all in the tips this week from you. Just a little bit of direction on how to play in, such a penal wind and impactful wind, which is what that whole course is set up to highlight. But him just saying, you might be able to get out of the fescue, but you don't know how to play the wind, which I thought was really, really interesting. Of all those answers, apart from those who were trying not to offend and upset anybody, that was the one that jumped out to me.
I mean, this is a second shot golf course. The closer you get to the green, the more difficult it becomes. And that's, to be perfectly fair and perfectly blunt, most players who are playing off 15 or higher, that's probably the worst parts of their game. As much as you think it might be the best part of your game, I would be surprised if you know the level of short game skill and shots required to get yourself not only on the green, but keep it on the green, and then to keep your putt on the green could be difficult as well. So I think that without sounding too horrible, I think 125 is probably fair. Also, think about the last time you went out and played your own stroke play monthly medal. What you shot. I mean, stroke is a totally different game to Stableford and par, which we've spoken about before in the past as well. So funny stuff from the DP World Tour there.
Just before we get on to some of the history that Wyndham was able to create, and then we'll get into some of the storylines. We'd spoken about it in the preview, and I was glad to hear that it was recognised in the commentary. It was a couple of things that came up were this is as links as it gets in America for a US Open, but also highlighting what the triangle setup of several of the holes was designed to do by the course designer in not allowing a player to have a repeat wind from hole to hole, so that you never get settled. And then we spoke about it during the tournament, and you pointed out too that and you'd say this is a second shot golf course. Even the wind from your drive to your approach was different on some of the holes.
Yeah, at different times. And that's what good routing will do, especially when you've got great land that Shinnecock does with elevation change, which so many uphill shots. I can't remember what they said on the telecast, but I haven't played the golf course yet. Any members out there, please sing out to me because I would love to come out and play. I think that most of the shots were uphill on the back nine, or a lot of the shots are uphill as well. So anytime it's windy and you're forced to play the ball in the air, which is what an uphill shot will do, it's going to get more affected. And as you mentioned, you've got tee shots that run in slightly different directions to your second shot. So you're playing two different winds on the same hole. And we spoke about this during the week when we were talking about other golf courses. I haven't played it, but I've walked the course, and 7 Mile Beach has that feel to me as well. So a lot of the golf holes run in different directions. They're not just straight up and back. So you don't get super comfortable with the wind. You have a lot of crosswind holes, which is what we saw this week. And there's no exact science to wind and to trajectory change. It comes down to feel and touch and awareness and practice and preparation. And those who handle it best were at the top of the leaderboard this week. And we can kind of run down the leaderboard now if you want to, Sammy.
Well, I just want to give some history because I love this stuff.
Yeah.
When you want to, we were talking about, who does Wyndham sit amongst now? Not just with multiple major winners, but also those who have gone wire to wire to US Open. So Walter Hagen, Jim Barnes, Ben Hogan, Tony Jacklin, Tiger Woods did it twice, 2000, 2002. Rory did it in 2011, went wire to wire. Martin Keimer did it in 2014, and Wyndham Clark adds his name to that list of wire to wire winners. That's pretty illustrious company. And this was an interesting one. Fewest starts needed to win 2 US Opens. Jim McDermott did it in 4, Walter Hagen did it in 5, Ernie Els did it in 5, Lee Trevino in 6, and so too did Brooks Koepka and Wyndham Clark. So 6 US Opens he's played, he's won 2. That's quite amazing.
We spoke about it, or I mentioned it sort of earlier on in the episode, is he's actually got a poor major championship record. He's now won 2 US Opens, but he's only ever had one other top 5 at the Open Championship last year. Otherwise, he's missed as many cuts as he's made. Incredible to have won two US Opens in especially on the golf courses that he has. I mean, we'll talk about this a lot, but LACC, brilliant golf course. Shinnecock Hills, brilliant golf course. So, look, and I think part of, as we said, part of the crowd's dislike for him was those big dirty cuts that he hits, but he gets it in the hole, and no doubt that he enjoys golf courses that probably have a little bit more space. His best other major coming at the Open Championship, where he can probably move the ball around quite freely. Another good player with 2 majors who did that was Bubba Watson, and he ended up getting 2 at the Masters. So just running through that as well, since we're on the lists of historic things, we mentioned as well, Wyndham Clark with 2 majors now has the same amount of majors as Bryson DeChambeau, Dustin Johnson, 2 obviously more recent major champions. But Greg Norman, we said off the top, Johnny Miller and Bernard Langer. He also has more majors than Fred Couples, David Duval, Davis Love III, Adam Scott, Justin Rose, and Jim Furyk. So just let that settle in there for a little while. I mean, they are household names that we're rattling off there. So an incredible accomplishment, and you just have to tip your cap to him.
Yeah, well said. So let's go through some of the notable performances as well, and the stories in and around them. So Scottie Scheffler was looking for the Grand Slam. It's his first opportunity to get it. He was my on top selection, Father's Day, birthday, all that stuff. But he was actually the first world number 1 to be in a final group at a US Open since Tiger at Torrey Pines in 2008. So that's how tough US Opens have been, even for the number 1 golfer in the world. He found himself chasing again, couldn't quite run it down, tied for 4th. How did you see Scheffler?
Just the best player in the world, doing the best player in the world things. He's a freak. We watched him miss putt after putt after putt, and it only seems like he's missing so many putts because he's just so good with his irons. He's just hitting so many world-class shots. He hit every green on the back 9, put the pressure on, wasn't able to make the putts, and just a spectacular week from a bloke who had 2 over. I mean, he was having an argument with his coach after the first round after his 2 over par, which didn't seem great, but we'd love to have that round again, but trying to figure out that little thing that was off, obviously, for the last few weeks, and to still finish top 5 is crazy.
And he's the antithesis of what I've just spoken about with Wyndham. He's not playing his best at the moment, yet he's still in the final group.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
I just that blows my mind that he's like, I'm I'm not really at my best at the moment. But he's a competitor, and he just loves to compete. And said beforehand that he's not driven by the Grand Slam, but if he was to get it, he'd go, great, I'll reset my goalpost now, and off I go. So
it shows what his
phenom.
floor is. It shows what his floor is. The best players in the world have the highest floor. And when people come in for a lesson or say, I just want to be a bit more consistent, consistency is not playing your best all the time. Consistency is having your worst much closer to your best. So that's what Scottie Scheffler is. His worst is just way better than a lot of people's best.
A lot of emotion around this. It was Father's Day. Sam Burns couldn't help but break into tears when in the press conference he was asked about what his dad was saying to him when he was waiting to know, and it was just that, I'm so proud of you. That really got me. He just, the heartbreak of last year, knowing what an opportunity that was for him. Oh, so close again this year. Outright second for Sam Burns. Do you feel like it's a when and not if? Does this steal him to take the next step, or are you worried that this is another brutal, fall at the
Close
last
call.
hurdle, so to speak?
Yeah. Look, he was brilliant last year, obviously. Final group, he actually coughed up a pretty big lead, which would still be eating at him. The closer you get without getting over the line, I think makes it all the more difficult each time that happens. But look, he continues to surprise me, to be honest. Sam Burns doesn't draw out a whole heap of emotion in me. I wasn't too fussed, really, coming down the stretch as to who was going to get there out of those two, Wyndham or Sam Burns. But he laid it all out there. He did everything he possibly could have in this Sunday round. 3 under par, came out, birdied 4 of the first 8 holes, and wasn't able to kind of keep that going, but made birdie, as we mentioned, on 16. Hit a brilliant shot into 17, 3-putted 15, which he'd love to have back, but at that time he's probably trying to push to put some pressure on. And then that putt on 18, he hit a world beater of a putt, and you can't really ask for anything more. But just another close call for Sam Burns. I'm not sure whether it's when, not if. I don't think he's going to have the same amount of chances as, say, a Scottie Scheffler will in his life. But, he's come close now a couple of times. It just depends on what he was able to learn and what he is able to glean from this to make him a better player in the future.
I think in our first episode of this season, we were tipping our predictions for the year, and I said I think Tom Kim's going to have the breakout after the breakout. So he has that year where he has 2 top 10s in majors in 2023, the tied for 8th at the US Open, and then T2 at the Open Championship, one after the other. And, he's on full swing, and you just think, gee, this kid's, 21, 22 years of age. And then it's been a bit of a grind for the last couple of years. His performance to finish outright third, continued to fight it all the way to the very end. It's his second best result in a major, but it is his best result in his last 8 since that T2 at the 2023 Open Championship. I was rapt to see him living up to, that enormous talent that he seems to possess, and still only 24 years of age too, which we sort of forget.
Yeah, well, exactly right. He's so young. Everyone was talking about Scottie Scheffler's birthday, and Tom Kim was saying, hey, what about me? What about me? It's my birthday too, right? It's his birthday today.
I think they caught up, didn't they? They're great mates, so I think they got together and had the...
24 years old today, which is just remarkable. I mean, he's won multiple times on the US Tour now and has slumped over the last little while, really dropped off. I think it's his worst world ranking in the last 5 years since he turned pro, which is crazy given that, that stretches back to when he was 19 years old. So from what I understand, he went to chase speed. That felt like what was holding him back, and he just sort of has lost his game a little bit. So great to see him bounce back, particularly in a President's Cup year. We're going to need all these guys firing, and he's the type of bloke that we need on the President's Cup team. And
he
well
loved
done.
it. Remember,
Obviously,
he played it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
He was great. He was so good for the crowd. And
same thing. He's someone who, whether you like him or whether you dislike him, you probably have a strong emotional reaction when someone mentions Tom Kim to you. So these are the guys that we need in the game. So great work. Finishing third secures him into all the majors for the next calendar year as well. So absolutely huge. Well done, Tom Kim.
And he had to qualify for this one too, because he got outside the top 100. He's outside the top 120. I think he'll have a big jump up, obviously, in the rankings. Now, I think you've already mentioned Keith Mitchell, but to go 6 over, front 9, day 1 to 6 under on your back 9 and go even through 4 rounds, that was quite something.
I love it. It's so impressive. I think he was the first player in US Open history to have had a round in the 40s and a round in the 20s in the 9 holes in the 40s and 9 holes in the 20s. And for all of that to shoot 70, 70, 70, 70, I just think is unbelievable how many times you talk about the US Open when you're saying, would you take even par? This is probably a week that at the start of the week you would have said, yeah, I'll take even par for sure. And he's gone out and done it. And I mean, he gave Sam Burns the perfect read on 18 as well. And he's just agonizingly short, just broke off to the right a little bit there as well. But I mean, is there a better, I mean, he is so aesthetically pleasing the way he goes about it. He just looks good on the golf course. I love his big visor. He looks flawless. The rhythm that he's got, the swing that he's got. I mean, he battles the putter from time to time, but he is a very aesthetically pleasing golfer to watch, Keith Mitchell, and another good week for him.
Yeah, it was. So tied before with JT Poston, who, what a good couple of weeks it's been for him, the Canadian Open, and then Scottie Scheffler was T4 as well. A couple of guys in T7 had interesting weeks. Tyrrell Hatton was my pick for the highest finishing live golfer, so I'm going to give myself a tick for that. But the guy he shared that honour with, Waco Neiman. So I think the most winningest player, if I'm not mistaken, on the live tour. We constantly think, surely he's got a major in him at some point because how dominant he has been on live. Make of that what you will. I think that more than you do. But
he's still quite young though, to be fair.
Yeah, he is quite young.
And he's won on the US tour, won the Genesis.
Yeah, he has. What a week he had. We saw him implode at the Australian Open where he snapped his driver and his putter, if not mistaken, and then threw it into. I thought we might just bronze it and leave it sticking out of the ground at Royal Melbourne. It did him under, just as Kingston Heath did the year before, and he had to go with his tail between his legs. Every right to turn up his toes after a first round where he had an 11, and then something quite strange, Lynchy, was thrown his way.
Yeah, well, part of the 11 was a 2-shot penalty after the round for misconduct, which is a new rule. I believe US Tour sanctioned, or certainly PGA Tour this year, in terms of if it's Rule 1.2b, which playing on live, I'm sure Waco probably wasn't aware of, but any acts determined to be serious misconduct will incur a 2-shot penalty. So he actually had a 9 on that par 4. I believe it was the 6th hole, and ended up getting a 2-shot penalty on top of that. He hit 2 balls out of bounds, went down to the right-hand side, kicked over the flag, the spotter's flag, hit a terrible shot, and then hoiked his club apparently 50 metres behind him. Didn't even start walking after it. A copper picked it up and brought it back to him. So, again, I mean, we saw some pretty bad... some questionable attitude at the Australian Open, as you mentioned. But do we need to be stroking guys for this sort of behaviour? What do you reckon?
I think there's bigger issues that we need to be stronger in regards to, and you know how I feel about pace of play, and I want as harsher penalties as we can give for that. I think that's what 2-stroke penalties should be thrown for. One warning, if you don't pick it up, bang, 2 strokes. So I think it needs to be so harsh that you just wouldn't dream of doing it again. I think there's got to be something, because there's just, golf has never had more eyeballs on it than it does right now, and there's never had more young people participating in it than right now. A little bit like what happens in the AFL. It's sort of like that, bringing the game into disrepute. If young fans are watching you behave in a way that isn't really befitting of the stage that you're on, albeit knowing that there's emotion to this, there's pressure, there's all those kind of things. But I think that and I think it's probably his past transgressions that have caught up with him. I think if that was the first time he'd done it, I don't know whether they would have pinged him. But I think it's started to follow him around a little, that he's got that in him, and he's become known for it. It is inconsistent, though, when you see videos of John Rahm kicking his driver down a fairway and nothing was said or done to him. So if you are going to do it...
That's the problem with the rule, is that, like, if it's based on past indiscretions, then it's not a bloody rule. Like,
I agree with you, but I'm saying I wonder if that's what
is,
counted against him in this.
Yeah, totally. And this is my issue with it. So I'm against a 2-shot penalty in this case for sure. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Is that, like, if we're going to start pinging blokes shots or women's shots, do it for slow play first of all. Secondly, like, it's just too grey. Determined to be serious misconduct. Well, what are the? Give us some examples of what serious misconduct is. Throwing your club 50 metres is obviously serious misconduct, but kicking your driver
25?
5 times down the... exactly. Kicking your driver down the tee 15 metres is not. So anytime there's grey area...
It is a World Cup, though, so maybe he was just trying to juggle it like a soccer player.
Maybe, exactly. I mean, plenty of sport on this weekend, but... so you can't. It's got to be more black and white if you're going to have a rule around this. It can't be adjudicated like an AFL umpire just on a gut feel basis. I think it needs to be a little bit more black and white. And to be honest, I kind of want to see. I want to see guys snap clubs. I want to see some frustration from time to time. I think it's funny. I love seeing guys blow up, and if it stops them from doing that, I mean, we've seen Rory McIlroy throw a club in the pond. We've seen John Daly in Australia throw his putter into the pond at Coolum. We've seen people snap clubs and throw it into the trees. I agree. We've got to be careful about what we show and what we highlight and what we don't.
Yeah.
And these guys are role models, but. Come on, a little bit of theatre.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. It's okay.
I agree with you. I also think too that I think, as I said, something needs to be done just to say to people, just keep an eye. Like you may have gone too far there. Like you don't want a situation like with Novak Djokovic where you're throwing stuff around, you're going to hit someone in the crowd or anything like that. We saw that with. That's what happened with Rahm at the PGA Championship. I would say this, that if it's an indiscretion that actually doesn't have any impact on the actual game and round itself, then I think it's a fine. I think for what he did, and I think if you're going to do that rule properly, that stuff is fine territory. Slow play though does have an impact on the game and the round and other people around it. So I think that should be penalised within the round itself. Behavioural stuff, I reckon, slap him with a fine.
Yeah, I think what he did was absolutely fine worthy. Give him a fine for sure.
Yeah,
but I mean, this is where it sort of comes down. So Waco Neiman obviously in an awkward space in terms of where Liv's going to be or what that's going to be. You know, we've spoken about that extensively, but that 2-shot penalty moved him out of a tie for third with Tom Kim, which would have guaranteed him into all the majors this year. Yeah. So it does have a very big impact on sort of what his career looks like over the next 12 months. But
well, for him to recover and have for him to have a 78 in round one and then finish in a tie for 7th is worthy of a bit of respect and a tip of the cap to him. Just the other one I want to throw before we get into those who didn't perform well and the Aussies, because it wasn't a great one for the Aussies, as we know. Yeah. Just a quick little shout out to a bloke that I had the pleasure of meeting before the 2024 Australian Open. I met him at Vic, did a quick interview with him for SEN at the time. The big rig, big sexy, as he likes to be known. He said Scott Van Pelt actually gave him that nickname, but Harry Higgs
likes to be known.
Harry Higgs, he also looks like maybe a less fit Chris, the one who was Star-Lord in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Chris
he's
Pratt,
in the Jurassic Park. Chris Pratt it is.
Yeah. He
Jurassic
looks like
Park,
and he said that. He goes, I have been told I look like I do look like him, but just maybe not as aesthetically put together. So he's had a top 25 this year. He's made about 35 grand. He's been bouncing between. He's had some great results in a few years ago in a couple of majors in a row. I think he had a top 5 finish at a PGA Championship, and that's after that Scott Van Pelt sort of got around him, and he backed that up. I think the next year at the Masters went okay.
It was at the PGA when Phil Mickelson won. He finished top 4, so gave him all the invites into every other major. So
and it hasn't sort of gone as well. Yeah, and then he's been bouncing between Corn Ferry and the PGA, hasn't been making cuts. He reckons he was 6 holes into the qualifier with the 36 holes and wanted to walk off and go home and felt like he might be done with the game altogether. He makes the cut. He's the last man in the field. He's the last alternate. He gets the call up. He rocks up day one in shorts. He's told, no, mate, you can't roll out in shorts. His wife had to go and get him some and bring him back. He was tied for 7th going into Saturday playing with JT. Finishes in a tie for 43rd at the end. But I saw someone write that sometimes golf has a way of just reminding people why they love this and bringing people back who might just be on the verge of walking away. And I think that this result may have just done that for him. And if you haven't seen his interviews, he's really worth having a look at what he had to say about the performance.
Yeah. I mean, this is what this game does. I mean, talking to somebody who had thought that a million times during their playing days, and sometimes these are either the results that keep you going and catapult you into that next stage, or it just gives you that little bit of belief that makes you play for another 2 years when you maybe shouldn't have. So I love to see him playing well. Unfortunately, he didn't have a good weekend, Harry Higgs, but let's hope that he gets that putter sword and finds his way back onto the US Tour, because he is a bit of a character for sure.
The most disappointing performers for you, Lynchy. Just before I mention that, we've got to probably throw all our Aussies in, unfortunately. It was the first time in 67 years at a US Open that no Aussies made the cut. You've got to go back to Bruce Crampton. I think Campton, 67 years ago at Winged Foot. And it's the first time since 2021 at the PGA Championship that no Aussie has made the cut at a major. Wasn't probably the 100th major that Adam Scott would have been hoping for.
No, certainly not. All the Aussies struggled, obviously. Ryan Fox, though, best of the Australasian contingent. I mean, he goes from strength to strength. He's such a good player. Finished in a tie for 23rd. Yeah, the Aussies would have been disappointed with their weeks for sure. I think they all would have fancied themselves at a great golf course like this. But, yeah, I mean, look, some close ones, but not good enough in the end. And... yeah, all of them head off home. One more I just wanted to mention as well. Alex Fitzpatrick finishing in a tie for 23rd with Ryan Fox as well, finishing one shot behind his brother Matt. Just continue to be impressed by that bloke.
Yeah, it's one of the feel-good stories. You called it. You believe that the weight of uncertainty that continues to hang around the necks of the live players will be maybe a burden that will be a little difficult to overcome for a lot of them. And the people that are sort of carrying the can for that tour at the moment are Bryson DeChambeau and Jon Rahm for varying reasons, but neither of them made the cut. That's despite Jon Rahm, I think, being the only player in round one who was bogey-free, but an awful Friday for him. After a pretty good Thursday, and Bryson's missed all three cuts in all three majors so far this year. Were they the most disappointing two performers, or did you have another couple in mind that you were a bit surprised couldn't make the weekend?
Oh, look, I didn't think. I mean, as I said, I thought they had the most pressure on their shoulders. I think Bryson DeChambeau, I actually tipped to miss the cut, but Jon Rahm. I'm just going to give you his last 13 holes. So he's bogeyed 6, bogeyed 7, par, bogey, double bogey to finish shooting 78 and miss the cut. I mean, he was on the front page of the leaderboard before that stretch of holes. And yeah, you just question what's going on in his mind. I think it was McGinley who was saying that in the negotiations with all live that Bryson DeChambeau's in there, Jon Rahm might not be. So, you know, there are little whispers and rumours all sort of starting to come out. From what I understand, Jon Rahm would like to be back on the US Tour if live doesn't go ahead. Yeah, a lot going on for Jon Rahm. Really difficult to play your best golf when mentally you've got so many uncertainties going on in your head. And like we spoke about with Wyndham, having to deal with all the crowd feeling like they've been against him. I feel like Jon Rahm may feel that same way as well, with just not being recognised as the player that he believes that he is. And he's really, over the last, since he went to live, underperformed in a time where you could argue he's in his prime. So, yeah, very disappointing finish for both of those guys. Probably not super surprising, though, Sammy. One more shout out as well before we move on is Xander Schauffele, another, top 15 at a US Open. He just loves this event, and wouldn't surprise me for him to get over the line at some stage. But that third round obviously cost him dearly. A couple of double bogeys to sort of finish that second 9 or double bogey 10, double bogey 12. He birdied 13 and 15, but he ejected himself, unfortunately, from contention across those 3 holes, which we said were going to be pivotal.
We were speaking about this during the week. I love Xander. I mean, he's probably, he is flying the flag now on the PGA Tour as the number 1 Callaway player. And obviously with John Rahm going to live, but still is part of the Callaway team. But his US Opens, but don't just look at his US Opens. Look at the man's major record. It is astounding. He's got the 2, and he got them, as we know, in 2024. But even this year, T9, T7, now T11. Last year, there's a T8, T28, T12, T7. The 2 wins, and he was top 10 in the other 2 that year. There was 2 top 10s, and the other were top 20 the year before that. His US Open record, it is just amazing how many times, if you look at the Wikipedia, right, there's either green for a win or yellow for a top 10. Look at how much yellow the man has. Just go and do yourself a favour.
Yeah.
I love watching him play because
player.
I love his swing. Oh, he is. He is as box office and big stage as it gets.
This is what we were talking about earlier on in the show, is that some guys are built for the big challenges, and he is built for the big challenges, and you just don't get that same test week in, week out. I mean, I heard him also come out and say, obviously he had that rib injury last year. He came back after a couple of months, but he said it took him a year to feel like he could really go at the ball again. So hopefully we haven't seen the best of Xander since that injury either.
7 out of the last 10 years he's been top 10 at the US Open, right? And the others he was top 20 that he didn't make. So if you're ever doing your top 10s,
his worst results 14th.
Yeah. So if you're doing, if you're having a bet, and we're not, telling people to go, if you don't have him in for top 20 in your multi for next year, then you are an idiot.
No, I don't think any of the betting companies are giving you much odds on that. Sammy, I think
I'd be short
20. Yeah,
it'd be very short, but have him in for your top 10. That's for sure. Hey, we've got to move on to some other things, but I think the feel good things that I saw, Miles Russell, who was duking it out to be Low-Am. It was Father's Day in the US, and these 2 things had me, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I was crying in both instances. Miles Russell's walking down 18, and he gets his caddy to go find his dad to swap the caddy vest so that his dad, as a 7, can walk the rest of 18 up to the green and stand with him while he has his last moments in his first US Open.
How good.
That got me. That got me in a big way. I just thought that was a beautiful moment. You have grown up in this game as someone whose dad was a world-renowned coach. It is a family thing for you in your family. Wyndham Clark's dad getting the red eye to surprise Wyndham to be there and have to stand there while his son's being, heckled and booed at, but to stand there and just to hold his son and say, I am so proud of you, and to say not just for what he's done, but for who you are. And I don't know if you heard that, but I'm so proud of who you are.
Yeah.
Oh man, that got me. That was just some beautiful scenes. And I imagine with someone who golf is family for you, I'm sure it would have got to you as well.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there are things that you can kind of sense sometimes that are played up a little bit, and they do make a big deal of the Father's Day thing finishing the Sunday of the US Open, but there are a lot of those great feel stories as well. I don't think any of that was hammed up. I thought that it was true emotion. I thought it was great to see, and we had 5 amateurs actually make the cut, so the game's obviously in great shape, but I've made no secret of it. The greatest moment of my life the greatest moment of my professional golfing life was actually happened before I was a pro, when I Monday qualified for the Australian Open for the first time as an 18-year-old in a playoff, and Dad and I were walking down the first fairway back to the clubhouse, about to drive to the Australian, and sharing that moment with him was the greatest professional moment of my life. So all of these moments. I mean, the Miles Russell one was so good, and I was just surprised that Wyndham's dad wasn't already there. But obviously, maybe he has that hoodoo thing, or doesn't feel comfortable when he is around. So curious about that. But some special moments this week, Sammy, for sure.
Absolutely. We've around the grounds obviously going to be dominated by the US Open, but just a big well done to Cassie Porter, who has an equal best finish in an LPGA event, and was right in contention. And I was sort of trying to follow that as we went along. But the Mayo LPGA Classic at Blythefield Country Club, Yamashita gets the win. Lottie Woad continues on. But it was Cassie Porter and Grace Kim, T5, T7, the best of the Aussies. But Cassie Porter takes some good form into the women's PGA, which is this week, Lynchy at Hazeltine.
Yeah, absolutely. Great venue. We know Hazeltine for the men obviously playing the PGA Championship there. So it's going to be a fantastic week of watching. We've got a few Aussies in the field as well, Sammy.
Yeah, we do. So Robin Choi, Carice Davidson, Hannah Green, Grace Kim, Minjee Lee, Cassie Porter, and Gabby Ruffles. So strong Aussie contingent. No Steph Kyriakou, who's just battling a little bit this year. Wishing her all the best. We know last year she was in contention in one of the majors in particular. Who's it best suited to of the Aussies I've just mentioned? Who do you like for this from an Aussie point of view? Hard to go past Nelly Korda for anything at the moment, but
well,
who
that's
of the
the
Aussies do you think is
storyline.
best placed? Yeah,
that's the storyline, isn't it? Can anyone chase down Nelly Korda? Can she win 3 majors in a row? But from an Aussie perspective, I think Hannah Green obviously has put together an incredible year. Grace Kim played well, as you mentioned. Minjee Lee always right up there. But my pick of the lot would be Hannah Green for this week at Hazeltine.
Lynchy, all in the tips this week. It's got to be, how do we manage wind?
So most players will have a bit of an idea in terms of what they will feel or how they go about rating the wind, because obviously when you're out there, you don't know the exact speed of the wind or even temperature and stuff really comes into it. And we were talking earlier in the week, this is the only aspect that is not formulated. There's no perfect mathematical equation as much as Bryson DeChambeau's trying to figure one out for wind. So it's very much a feel thing. What I would say is that finding out whether or not you're a high spin player or a low spin player, making sure that you fit into the right golf ball is really, really important. When you're at the driving range as well, just pay attention to the direction that the flags are blowing, especially when you're practicing at driving ranges with Top Tracer or with some sort of ball measuring device. And just pay attention to how much the ball's moving in the air. The other thing that I would just say is that anytime, if you've got a preferred ball flight, to try to play with the wind wherever you can. Fighting against the wind will often knock it out of the air, but it's a feel thing. So in my yardage books, I used to write down a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 for wind conditions in terms of feel. Very, very occasionally I'd write down a level 5, which happened a couple of times in Fiji and some places like that for the Fiji International, but that's very, very extreme. And that's extreme to the point where what would usually be a pitching wedge is a 6 iron, for example. So wind is the only thing that challenges these players because there's no mathematical equation, and that was why it was so fascinating this week. But go out there, have a bit of an idea in your mind as to what level 1, level 2, level 3 wind might be, and start making notes in terms of how far your 7 iron went into that wind or how much your ball was knocked away from the flag in certain winds and things like that. But it's a very nuanced topic of conversation, but it takes practice and obviously just recognizing that it's a big factor.
Are you a hit lower into wind or and then just let it ride with wind kind of operator, or if it's crosswind, you try for a lower ball flight and trajectory?
Great question. So the more shots that you have, which is why we encourage all players to have all types of shots. So if I've got a wind off the right, and let's say it's an 8 iron distance normally. If I've got a wind off the right, I can play a draw 9 iron, ride the wind, and know that it's going to get to my number. I can also hit a cut 7 iron against the wind. So rather than playing the 8 iron, I'll either hit the draw 9 or the cut 8. So that's a crosswind out of the right for a right-hander. Knowing that the cut will be playing into the wind and it'll take speed off the ball, it really depends on what kind of shot you want to play, where the pin is. So if it's into the wind and you've got a back pin, you obviously want to be playing something that's pitching probably short of the pin, depending on the screen speeds and whether or not you're going to get any spin. Into the wind, you're going to take it a little bit longer. So I would take an extra club into the wind and just hit it softer. So the harder you hit a ball, the more spin it's going to produce. So I always like to hit my into the wind shots with less speed so that the ball doesn't rise and spin too much into the air so as that it carries the distance that I want it to.
Lynchy, we've got a cracker of a mulligan this week. Do you always love a news reporter or commentator faux pas? And see if you can pick up this from a news reporter who's reporting back on the US Open, channeling potentially a little Sandy Roberts from a day gone by.
This summer, Long Island, New York is on the spotlight with Shinnecock Hills hosting the 126th US Open. Now, this is a notorious...
It makes us laugh.
Brilliant stuff. Oh, it doesn't get much better than that.
Before.
I suppose the teleprompter was moving pretty quickly. I couldn't think of anything worse than reading a teleprompter, to be honest. I would be horrible at that. So I can't laugh too hard, but she did make a bit of a blue there. Big mulligan.
Hey, we'll keep the scramble on hold for another week, but there is a big news story that came through, and this wasn't a coincidence that this was rolled out, right in and around the US Open. This is what they call in journalist terms taking out the trash, is when you release a big news story and hope that it doesn't really get much attention, Lynchy. But golf ball rollback, you've been following this rather intently, and there was some important news that came through when they were hoping, I think, that nobody was going to pay any attention to it.
Yeah, look, we spoke about the fact that the R&A were going to release information about the golf ball rollback. Obviously, they're in discussions with the USGA, all the majors and PGA tours, all the tours around the world are in deep discussion about what needs to be done at the highest level of men's professional golf in particular to make sure that we don't lose these great venues. I think initially when I saw this, I was really disappointed in the fact that it's obviously on hold for another 3 years. We just have to hope that the preparation and all the discovery that they find over the next 3 years highlights that there still is significant change that needs to be made. I understand that maybe all of this data and all of the stuff that they've put together around the golf ball, I don't think it would have been enough. And I don't think the golf ball alone is the biggest piece of equipment that needs to be changed. So I'm happy for them to abandon it if it means that over the next 3 years, you've got all of the governing bodies working together to come to the correct decision in this space. And it sounded like, as I did a little bit more digging, that they hadn't admitted defeat. They haven't decided that nothing's to be done. It seems as though that they're going to be doing a lot more learning, a lot more discovery, and all pulling together in the best way that we can minimize our footprint on the professional men's side of things, and even minimize our footprint going forward in terms of the way that this game is played. As we saw this week, we spoke about a par 5 being an actual par 5. It had to be over 620 yards long, or I think it was 614 or whatever it was. We can't have 4 of those on a golf course. We can't have 4 600-yard par 5s if we want to have par 72s. Either we change the par, do something about the club head, do something about the tee height. There's a stack of different things that we could do to bring the game back into an area that showcases the best talent and make sure that it highlights every aspect of the game. I was talking to another pro earlier this week about a way that he thought it would work, reducing the amount of clubs in the men's professional golf bag, which I thought was an interesting one as well. So a lot more data to be looked over the next 3 years, and hopefully we still get the result that I, in particular, would like to see.
And as we always say, this is all in regards to the men's professional game, trying to keep these iconic courses in play for iconic and major events. For the women's game, have at it, and for the punter like me, the technological advancements have kept so many people in the game, brought so many people to the game, means it's a bit easier to play now than it ever has been. So we're all for it in those spaces, but as we've said a few times, we just want to protect these iconic courses and make sure they still have the role to play in the game that they should. And it's not just the same course week in, week out where they can bomb, gouge, putt. So that's where we stand on this, and we'll follow this with great interest. That joint statement from the USGA, the R&A, the DP and the PGA. Nothing, Augusta wasn't in there at all. There was a couple of people not in there.
I think they were. There was conversation. And look, you only need to go down to your local public golf course as well without being horrible. It's also quite dangerous. when you can hit a golf ball 240 metres and you're a 15 handicap and it's going more offline than what the pros go, you hear a lot more fours than you used to, and there are a lot more greens that are in play as well. So it's a safety thing. It's from a growing grass and water, conservation, all of these things. The game just needs to just shrink down just a little bit, in my opinion. It doesn't take away from the enjoyment of finding the center of the face if it goes 220 meters instead of 240 meters. The long players should still be rewarded, but we should be testing every part of a long player's bag as much as we're testing a short player's bag.
It is having an impact at our course as well, a small impact, and part of some of the changes that are being made to Cheltenham as well for a raft of reasons, but that is a small one as well. Righto, mate, we've had a big and lengthy episode, but I thought we better always finish on a laugh, as we like to do. It is Course Language Confessional time. We are starting to get some entries come in our hat giveaway, the Callaway and Travis Matthew caps that we've been given by our very good friends at Callaway for the best course language confessionals that get sent our way. So people are a little shy, Lynchy, and dobbing themselves in, but you can remain anonymous, courselanguagepodcast@gmail.com, or get on our @Course Language Pod Instagram page. You can record it and send it straight to us via Instagram. You can dob yourself in, you can dob a mate in. It doesn't have to be an embarrassing story. It can be an incredible moment that happened, the funniest moment on a golf course, your greatest moment on the golf course, but the best stories we want to reward. We've got an entry from one of my best mates.
Thank
We're going to have to clean up a little.
People who have entered as well, by the way.
One from one of my best mates, we're going to have to try and clean up a little, otherwise we may be in danger of losing our sponsorship. So we're just going to hold off on that one. But another one that came to me via Bendigo as well, it was a bloke who I happened to play with at Cheltenham who had spent some time up around Bendigo. And I was telling him about the Course Language Confessional, and he said that he played with a bloke once at Bendigo Golf Club who will remain nameless for anyone that is listening. So if you've ever played Bendigo Golf Club, the 18th and the 1st are alongside each other. And they were teeing off on one, and he has snap hooked into the left, this bloke he was playing with. And he just finished telling the people that he was playing with that he was actually having a sick day that day because he got a message from his boss that morning who also said, "Oh, look, boys, I'm under the weather. I'm not coming in today, so you'll have to get the job done without me." So he gets in touch with the other boys and said, I can go play golf. You cover for me. No worries. We've got the job in hand. Go and have a good day. You pay us back next time. So he snap hooks into the left and is heading into the trees and come out and thinks it might have gone out onto the 18th fairway. And the bloke's watching this bloke look for his ball, about to head over, and he sees the bloke watch a golf cart drive past him, stop and stare at it, turn around and run behind a tree and hide. And he goes over to him and said, "Mate, what are you doing?" And he goes, "That was my boss that just drove past me in the golf cart and stared right at me."
Oh, that is good stuff.
So the boss has called in sick because he wanted to go and play golf. Therefore, this bloke's called in sick because he wanted to play golf, and they've seen each other. And he saw this bloke not long after and said, "How'd you go?" And he goes, "It's never been brought up."
Excellent. Oh, that is so good.
Suffice to say that he didn't play very well because he was just a little bit rattled by having seen his boss driving down 18 in a golf cart. So I did get a little chuckle after that out of that. So that is our Course Language Confessional this week. Keep the entries coming in. The best, we're going to throw a Callaway or a Travis Matthew hat your way. Don't forget, if you are shopping for Travis Matthew at the moment, it is their end of financial year sale. Anytime you jump onto their website, use Course Language 20 at checkout. Get yourself 20% off there and on the OGO websites as well. If you are in the market for new Callaway gear, at the moment the Quantum range is going gangbusters, so they can be even more generous. 8 pieces of Quantum gear. They're going to give you a brand new Callaway bag to put them all in. And if you do buy the new Quantum driver, which I've got that just up there, and Lynchy, you've been throwing yours around as well. A brand new Quantum driver, you get a dozen Chrome Tour golf balls. So they never cease to amaze with their generosity, our good friends at Callaway. And you can take advantage of that generosity if you're on the market for some of the Quantum gear, which we can't recommend any more highly. Lynchy, good luck to all the Aussies playing in the women's PGA this week. It's time to go get some rest after it's been a grueling few nights watching the US Open. Mate, if you're heading out there, enjoy your round and remember what happens on course plays on Course Language.
Hit 'em well.